Welcome to Rewild Your Business. I'm your host, Jill Mokes, and thank you so much for joining me again this week. If you are new around these parts, of course, I'm so glad you stumbled upon us, and you are so welcome here. Go back and have a little binge of some previous episodes if you feel drawn to. This week's episode is one that feels quite relevant for me at the moment because it's a topic that I used to be quite dismissive of until I made it work for me, and now I can't live without it. So what is this practice, you are asking yourself? It's journaling. Now, before you start rolling your eyes at me, please give this a chance. Listen to this episode, even if you're someone who has tried and failed at developing a journaling practice. Even if you are someone who claims to just not be a writer, you don't have to be a writer to journal. And even if you're someone who claims they have no time or all of the other reasons we give for not developing any kind of ritual practice, I just want you to give this a chance and let me talk through why I think this is such an important practice for us as business owners to develop. I really do understand the resistance as well. Like I say, this is something that I resisted for so long. I just couldn't get into it. I didn't understand the point of it. And I think I'm going to unpack why that was in this episode. But I just want you to think about it and just mull over, what if all of the answers that you're searching for at the moment about what your next move should be, about your pricing, about your offers, the whole direction of your business, your life, what if the answers to all of those questions are already inside you? And the thing that's missing is a regular practice that lets them surface. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's dive into the episode. Welcome to Rewild Your Business, the podcast for women doing the work their soul intended. I'm Jill Mokes. I'm an international business coach, and I'm a guide for women doing the work that matters. Rewilding your business means cutting away what doesn't belong to allow what does to thrive, finding simplicity in your work. And it's about bringing the whole of who you are to the table, whether you're building something new or finding your way back to what really matters to you. I'm so glad you're here. So let's start off by unpacking some of these really common things that come up when you're feeling that resistance to journaling or to even giving it a go, right? And the biggest one that I hear is, oh God, I'm just not a writer, Jill. I'm just not a writer. Writing's not my thing. And I want to clarify something because journaling isn't writing. It's thinking with your hand. When you're journaling, there's no audience, no craft required. There's no grammar police. No one's coming and checking your spelling. And it doesn't need to make sense to anyone else. Only you. So that's the first thing. Journaling isn't writing. The second one, I don't have time. And I want you to just question that one, because could it be that you don't have time because you are so busy running your business on strategy without it being informed by your intuition, by your soul, whatever name you like to give for that inner piece of you, that when you allow it to inform the direction of your work, everything changes. So actually a journaling practice can create time for you because it cuts through all the noise that's stopping you from listening to that inner voice, right? Another thing I hear quite often is, I tried it and nothing happened. And I think that's a really interesting one. That can often be because you're almost waiting for some kind of lightning bolt or some sort of epiphany to happen as soon as you put pen to paper. And I just want you to give it more of a chance than that. This is a practice, a ritual that you can get into the habit of doing each day. And I can promise you that when I finally embedded this as a ritual, and I always like to make the difference here between a ritual and a habit. A habit is something that you have to really work hard to stick to. A ritual is a gift that you give yourself. So for me, journaling is an absolute ritual that I love. It's part of my morning practice, part of my evening practice. And only when I embedded it into my life as a ritual did I start seeing the benefits of doing it. Did I start feeling that quicker, that deeper connection with the inner work that actually informs the growth of my business. Another thing I hear is, and this is a really interesting one actually, I hear a lot of women will say, oh, it feels self-indulgent to be spending time kind of on something that, I'm busy enough as it is. I've barely got enough hours to run my business. So just journaling or letting things flow freely out of my brain onto paper feels a bit self-indulgent, right? But I would really challenge that. I would say that honestly, I think the most aligned business decisions that I've ever made have come from inside my own head, not something I've heard from someone else, not something I've heard on a podcast like this even, They've actually come from giving myself time and space to listen and record what comes up. That's what journaling does for me. So if those kind of different ways that we resist journaling all have ways of addressing them, I would say that there is one thing that potentially needs a bit more digging into, and that is that the resistance to journaling is often resistance to hearing what you already know. And I think that's where this gets interesting. Why are you resisting having to hear something you already know? It's worth pondering on that. Is there an area of your life or your work where you are out of alignment? And you know that if you are confronted with that, or if you confront that, you have to do something about it. And that's scary territory, right? So let's talk about what journaling actually is, because I really want you to understand that this isn't sitting down and trying to write a book. This is nothing like that at all. It's not about a pretty notebook. It's not even necessarily about having a morning routine or, writing prompts or anything like that. It doesn't have to be any of those things. What it is about creating an unfiltered channel between your conscious mind and that deeper place within you, your intuition, your soul, your soul's knowing, whatever language feels right for you. We all call that inner part of ourselves something different, don't we? But that deeper wisdom that's in you. Journaling is about creating a channel between that deeper part and your conscious mind. And when you write without an agenda, now this is about literally putting pen to the paper and just writing what comes up, like you're channeling. This is something that I've only discovered in the last probably 6 months, that I can now clear my mind and just put pen to the paper, and it's almost like there is no thought process going on. I'm just channeling directly the words that are coming up from somewhere deeper. I say from my soul, but that didn't come straight away. That took a lot of intentional journaling to get to a place where I could do that. And it's so incredibly interesting what comes up, honestly. And the beauty of writing without an agenda like that, without editing, without stopping to think about whether it's good or bad, the writing, then you really do bypass that strategic part of your mind, the part that's always looking to optimize what you're doing, the part that's kind of always trying to manage other people's perception of you. This part that's always trying to get it right, And when you can get under that, that's really where the gold is. That's really when the truth of what you believe sits. I think there's a difference between journaling to something. So in other words, having a very formalized journaling session. There's no right or wrong with these, but there is a difference between, journaling with a set of writing prompts, or deliberately writing a gratitude list, or goal setting, that kind of journaling. It's great, but it's definitely limited. You've already put a container around it. Whereas when you're journaling from something, so letting that writing move through you without knowing where it's going or where you're going to end up or what's going to end up on the page, right? That is where real transformation happens. You have no idea what's going to come up when you allow yourself to write that freely. So the truth of it is incredible. So how do we actually learn how to do that? How to write that freely? Well, first of all, you only need 3 things. You need something to write with, you need something to write on, and you need a willingness to be bad at it. You don't need a special time of day. I think personally, I do think that the morning works really well for journaling because your more strategic kind of editorial mind probably hasn't quite booted up yet. So, you're giving yourself a bit of a head start if you start in the morning before that processing mind has had a chance to kick in. I would also suggest that you put your phone in a different room because journaling does require undivided attention. And then what you're going to do is you're going to start with your hand, not your head. And this is the part that everyone struggles with because they will sit with a blank piece of paper and just say, well, I don't know what to write about. I don't know what am I supposed to be journaling about? I don't get it. But what I want you to do is start with your hand, not your head. So write the first word, 2 words, sentence that comes to you. And it doesn't matter what it is. I will very, very often start my morning with the words, I don't know what to write about today. That is a perfect first sentence. Another first sentence might be, I am pissed off because I don't feel like journaling this morning. Another perfect sentence is, I've just noticed that I didn't even journal yesterday and I've committed to doing it every day. Damn it. Why can't I keep this up? So don't think that this has to start with something profound and deep. Just start with your hand, not your head. And then keep the pen moving. And honestly, this is the only rule that matters when you're journaling. Don't stop to read back over what you've written. Don't cross anything out. Don't edit it. If you run dry, if you kind of run out of ideas, then write again. I don't know what to write next. Until something else comes to you, and it always does, I promise you. The other thing that you might want to think about is making sure that you follow the thread of your writing, not the topic. So in other words, you might start your journaling by writing about, a client situation. And then you might end up writing about your relationship with your mother, right? Let it go wherever it wants to go. The thread knows where it's going, even when you don't. And it's really important to understand that this isn't linear thinking. It's intuitive, it's alive, it's weaving its own way. So follow the thread, not the topic. Don't bring yourself back to the topic you thought you had planned to write about, okay? And I think the first few minutes of writing actually are usually kind of logistics. It's interesting. The first few minutes are quite surface level. You'll find yourself sort of focusing on maybe complaints, things that you're peed off about, or, surface level stuff that's going on. And that's absolutely fine. What that does is it kind of clears the pipes. And then the real inner work, the inner voice tends to come up a bit later, about 10 minutes maybe after you've started, once you've written past all the stuff that you kind of already knew. And that's when it's important to keep the pen moving and don't read it back straight away. When you come to a natural end of that journaling session, wherever that thread has taken you, close your notebook and don't read it back straight away. Just walk away from it and let it settle. And if you want to, you can return to it later. But honestly, the value of journaling isn't in the end product of what gets written on the page. The value of journaling is in the process. The shift happens in the writing itself. I would love you to commit to trying this for 5 days. Just do 5 days, 5 minutes each time. No bigger commitment than that. Just treat it like an experiment. See how you get on. 5 days, 5 minutes each time. Because honestly, when you can get to a place where you literally just have to put the nib of the pen onto the paper and it will start moving. You just have no idea where that thread's going to go. You just allow it to lead and you follow. It's really transformational. And I think it's really important for us as business owners specifically. And here's why. It bridges the inner practice of reflection and what's going on under the surface of what we say we think or what we want to think or believe. It bridges the gap between that and our outer results, right? So when you're building a soul-led business, the strategy that you work to can't only come from the market around you. It has to come from you. And journaling is how you get to hear what's actually asking to be built. It's where you get to tune in to what's really asking to be offered to your clients, to be written about, to be spoken about, rather than you just focusing exclusively on what you think you should be doing based on what works for other people or based on, what's worked in the past. This is where the deep work happens and you get to make connections and you get to build a business that is so uniquely yours because it's come right from down deep inside. It's been informed by that because you've learned how to bring that up. I think for us as business owners, one of our main jobs as a business owner is making decisions. If you are someone who detests making decisions, then having your own business is going to be tough for you, right? Because as business owners, we make decisions every day. Should I lower my prices? Should I raise my prices? Should I launch this podcast? Should I pivot? And what journaling can do is it can surface all of the fears that are around the thing you're thinking about so that you can see them clearly. And then you get to be able to make the decision from a more stable place. So the page gets to hold on it what you're struggling to say out loud. And it really lets you explore. Those threads can take you through the, what if I just did this kind of thoughts. One thing that has been amazing for me since I started really seriously journaling, like regularly journaling every day, is that some of the most powerful content that I've created has come from my journal. I would say most of the episodes that I record for this podcast probably sparked from a journal entry. I'm not saying I ever copy or paste anything from my journal because honestly, half the time I can't even read what I wrote, to be quite honest, because it comes really quickly when I'm writing. But the ideas that surface when I'm journaling are very, very often what sparks an idea for an episode of the podcast or for something on Substack, something to inform so I'm building out a new program at the moment, completely as a result of something that came up when I was journaling. This can be incredibly useful for you if you're someone who knows that you have something to say, but you keep kind of producing this really safe and slightly formulaic, dare we say, content, a little bit AI-y. That can often be because you haven't quite accessed yet that wilder, deeper stuff underneath. Journaling can help bring that up for you. People who say they're not good at writing will find that journaling absolutely unlocks something for them because they're not trying to perform it. They're not trying to write something for other people to read. I think journaling is actually a release valve. That's definitely what it is for me. It kind of helps me process the emotional weight of running a business because there's a ton of emotional weight. All of the self-doubt, the comparisonitis, the entrepreneurial loneliness, which is a definite thing. It definitely helps me process that. It helps me process client work. So I might journal around something that's come up in a client session, just so I can help make sense of it afterwards. And that way we're not carrying that emotional heaviness into our next call or our next conversation. I think unprocessed emotion, that's a massive energy leak for most of us. And so writing, journaling really catches what would otherwise be just running around in our minds all the time, looping around, right? Free writing really becomes a kind of listening practice. You're not writing down your thoughts. You're actually writing what comes through when you stop trying to manage that narrative. So if you try and record your thoughts, you're going to try and manage what they are. You're going to try and make sense of them before they hit the page. Whereas actually free writing allows you to detach from the output, and that allows it to become this listening practice. I think there's a huge layer of self-knowledge in all of us, particularly as women in midlife, actually. There's so much self-knowledge that really we can only access in stillness, in quiet. It's the longings, it's the callings, it's the kind of knowing that we have inside that our work is meant to be something more than just a revenue stream, right? If you are that kind of business owner, if you are a business owner that is committed to doing the work that your soul intended for you, then journaling is one of the most reliable ways to tend that relationship with your work. To be able to keep asking yourself, is this still aligned for me? Is this still true? What's changing? And I think, the name of this podcast is Rewild Your Business. And journaling is so part of that rewilding philosophy. Journaling helps us get back to what's natural, what's instinctive and true for us. Because on the page, when you're free writing, you don't have to be polished. You don't have to be strategic. You don't have to be on brand. You just need to allow yourself to be honest, right? So I would love you to try this 5-day experiment. I honestly think that do this regularly for 5 days, 5 minutes, 5 days, pen on paper, keep the pen moving, no agenda, right? That's the challenge. I honestly think that if you do this, it will change the way you feel about journaling. I think it's quite addictive now for me. Don't obsess over what comes out. It doesn't matter if you never go back and read a single word you ever wrote. Doesn't matter. It's just giving yourself a place where you can hear your own voice. And if something comes up that does land for you, if something shifts, then, trust it, because that is the practice of journaling working for you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'm not going to give you a journaling prompt this week because, this one's really for people who haven't built that journaling practice yet. So, if that's you and if this has landed for you, or even if you are a journaler, but this has given you kind of maybe more incentive to try even freer writing, even less attachment to the output, then I'd love you to do this 5-day challenge, 5 minutes, 5 days, and see how you feel by the end of it. And at the end of the week, I would absolutely love you to email me and let me know, info@jillmokes.com. I'm really enjoying kind of connecting with some of you a bit more directly through email at the moment, where it's just us sort of toing and froing. I'm really enjoying that. So yeah, email me and let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Okay. Listen, have a fantastic week, and I will see you back here, same time, same place, next week. Bye for now.